Hello, welcome everyone. This is our next episode of our expert discussions with executives and business leaders, focusing on our book Data as the Fourth Pillar. So today I'm very much happy and excited to welcome Matt Preschern to our expert discussion. So welcome, Matt.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Sujay.
Our pleasure, Matt. So Matt, if just for the interest of the listeners, if you may give a brief introduction about yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I've been blessed with a wonderful corporate career of over 30 years. I've worked for 25 of which I've spent in the IT industry with companies such as IBM, HCL Technologies, CA, ForcePoint, and then one of the last opportunities I had was with NTT Limited. I've been a CMO for about 10 of those years, have directly worked for six different CEOs. Uh, and personally, I'm a global citizen, so to speak. I was born and raised in Austria, lived in Taipei for a year or two, moved to the US, but and have lived here for 30 years. And well, you can see though also from the names of companies, they include American headquartered companies, European companies, HCL, obviously one of the, I think today the third largest Indian company, NTT, one of the longest standing and most respected companies in Japan. Today, I am leading a consulting practice. I've worked for myself, so to speak, and I just spent some time with a very important client in Chicago. And I'm sure we will speak about the importance of data as part of this conversation. Again, thank you so much for having me.
Lovely, Matt. What a rich repertoire of experience that you've gathered on a global basis. And I believe you a lot of have a cultural experience as well, being in different countries across the globe, right? And different types of organizations.
Yeah, along those lines, yes, amongst other things, I think I've been to India about 30 times in my life and have friends and colleagues. I still have family in Europe. I personally live a little bit outside of New York. I spent now a little bit more time in somewhere, in the Caribbean at times on certain islands, but I've also been basically to all continents and like to speak multiple languages, and as such, also the cultural component is a big part and also part of my enjoyment to work with people from different parts of life.
Right. Lovely, Matt. So let's dive into and you talked about the importance of data, and you have done a, uh significant marketing function role, being a chief marketing officer, but today you are also having a different discussions with your customers, right? Being in the consulting role. How do you see the importance and the value given to data has evolved over your career? If you can give a brief perspective about it, that will be really useful.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think the context you just said is actually really important. I'd like to say data has been important for a long time,
Yes.
right? It's not like we're just waking up today. It's probably more important and very much it's like you can't escape the AI discussion or agentic AI and so forth. And therefore, everybody says, oh my God, data, data, and data. But as a marketeer, I'm sure many would recognize the art and science of marketing.
Yeah.
And the science of marketing very much goes into a data insight. It also goes into technology, right? And so I think for marketing specifically, what's interesting is marketing is on the one hand the consumer of data, but on the other hand, it's also produces data
Yeah.
that needs to be used, right? And so I remember many years ago, when I actually worked for IBM and we did large scale, what at the time we called them market intelligence studies, right?
Yeah.
And those were gathered in more traditional forms at the time. But what became very clear at that time is insights as to consumer behavior and what the needs were was very important. As I then went through my career and this notion of probably in the 2010 timeframe around demand generation and how to use automation tools and customer buying intent data started to come up. And how do you actually now in real time in an electronic version, start to use data to gather more information and share that with sellers so that they can actually incorporate that in a
Yeah,
much more meaningful way into the sales process. And I think, what's happened, the level of sophistication has gone up over the years. And I think today, um, can you be a good marketer without data? You can probably manage certain aspects of the communication side. Uh, And even there, I would suggest that actually some of our PR colleagues are bleeding edge in knowing their customers very well. But I don't think you can be successful actually if you ignore the data side. And so I think this is extremely timely, extremely timely. And so again, yeah, that's kind of my point of view.
that's great, Matt. And I think you talked about really important point about the marketing that you are in the cusp of not only being a producer but also a consumer of data. So you are seeing the both sides of the coin, and then you are a very important persona for any chief data officer who are working within the organizations because they capture the data demand from you, but they are also capturing provide data supply through you as well. So that's a very important critical role that the marketing functions be. What I would say, what I have observed, Matt, and if you may agree, yes, data has been very important for marketing over the years because without data you cannot grow this insight. But do you observe that there is something has changed in terms of which we call in our book called data intensity has changed? And what do you mean by data intensity? We have kind of explained through the QCS framework where Q stands for quality, C stands for compliance, and S stands for speed. So maybe
Absolutely. So without a doubt, and you know, here's kind of, the nuance on this is so data usually comes, if you're a marketing officer, you by definition with sales are a little bit kind of the custodian of the customer. Customer data comes at you not just in one form,
yeah,
right? There's customer research data, there's customer data from your own systems, there is probably data that comes from your accounting systems, there's data that comes in both, in different forms, some structured, some non-structured. The trick is, A, the data needs to be to some extent be clean.
yeah,
And it also needs to be usable so that you can actually use them for decision making,
yes,
right? The notion of targeting key customers with a high degree of certainty, so that goes to your quality component,
yeah,
absolutely essential. I think the biggest difference today is, and this has been kind of persistent throughout my career, is the time frame and the intensity of, look, I need this like now.
exactly.
I remember many years ago, and for some of you, you probably, if you're in the marketing profession, you'll be smiling. We basically did campaign planning, kind of the waterfall. We
Yeah,
do some research, then we do the plan, then we develop the assets, then we track it, and that would take like 3 months. Today, it's like a virtuous circle that kind of repeats itself in very short, kind of repeatable cycles, so to speak. But the tricky part is there is an expectation and an ever-growing expectation that true data is being used as a foundational element of what you do. And frankly speaking, it's supposed to be fairly accurate.
yeah,
And so, absolutely. And I think again, it probably adds again a little bit to the challenges of probably most C-suite leaders. Um, you have to be somewhat numeric. You don't have to be a data analyst. We all know that data scientists are, in many instances may have multiple PhDs in statistics and in other types of efforts. And obviously there's technology involved, but you do need to be somewhat comfortable with, the numeric side of what you do in the marketing profession as well. So without a doubt, I
yeah,
mean, I've observed that, and you know, while the discussions may be similar, the demands and particularly the time frames for delivering those are It was this, then it was this, then it was
Yeah.
this, and it's now,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's why we kind of parameterize it high. So speed is becoming very much high. And if you now think from an AI and like you touched upon agentic AI, your AI agents are not going to wait for you that, okay, wait on, I will give you the data in another 5 seconds. So you need to be totally real time when you're adopting AI agents in any function, including the marketing function.
I
And
completely agree. It has to be real time.
yeah,
I still, and I still hold on to the premise, though, that there is the real value of the human brain still relies in the synthesis in certain aspects, right? I find the best use cases of AI, agentic AI, is still where you have a little bit of a critical eye
yeah,
as to what the outputs are, right?
exactly.
At some point, maybe in the future, we can say, look, this is 100% done. But all of us who've used different types of AI, whether it was for content creation in written form, whether it was, you know, uh, I usually like to say, okay, have you also taken a look at this? And is it really 100% accurate to that point?
Yeah,
So I still, at this point, believe that it's very much complementary and that actually the best marketeers are the ones who embrace AI as a productivity and insights tool. It
yeah,
makes them work faster, better, more efficiently,
yeah.
right? But it has not yet completely replaced, and I don't think it will for what it's worth.
Exactly. And with compliance being there, but increasing regulations, and in US, every state has its own regulations. So you cannot ignore that. And with agentic AI, it becomes more critical. You need to have the human, as you say, eyes on it. But what we are observing then that more and more use cases you will see will demand the high intensity, high on quality,
Absolutely.
high on compliance, and high on speed. And that's the challenge for organizations to cater to that demand. And there is variety of those demands across from the sales
Yeah, and
function.
if I could add maybe one component to that, I also spent a couple of years working for ForcePoint, a Raytheon-owned cybersecurity company.
Yeah,
I think that this will be another one of these areas we will have to really look into. I mean, I don't know if you saw this week where, now you're having bots and voice bots taking over and impersonating very
yeah,
senior officials in reaching out, right?
yeah,
So what happens is you have the goodness of all of this, but you also, as you said, you have compliance,
yeah,
you have cybersecurity. And so what I say is, again, the responsible use of data in a very organized fashion is actually something that is really, really important. But not to confuse anybody, just because there's certain risk associated with it, doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing.
no,
You have to, in fact, invest
exactly.
and look at it, right?
Exactly. And these are the challenges and how to find a solution of it in a more systematic manner. That's why we have proposed making data as the strategic pillar of the enterprise. So in addition to your people, process, technology, treat data as the fourth pillar and execute your operations more from marketing, sales, every business function in that perspective, Matt. So any thoughts from, as you have heard this, any thoughts on that, Matt, from your side?
So look, so in full disclosure for everyone, it's not like Sujay and I have known each other for the last 10 or 15
Yeah.
years and so forth. We were introduced a little while ago. And what having again had a wonderful opportunities in the corporate world for many years, I like the provocation. I like the fact that you're saying, look, it has to be a fourth pillar. I think you are very in a very astute manner elevating the importance of it. And
Exactly.
I'm sure there will be many say, but does it have to be a fourth pillar and there will be a discussion? I think that discussion ought to be had. So, if nothing else, what I like about this is I would hope that the insights that you're bringing forth here is actually going to lend itself to a discussion, right? So, whether or not that's applicable to every organization of every shape and size, it may or may not. But I do believe that you're provoking or you're challenging people to maybe think in a slightly different manner. And I, for one, for those who have worked with me, I know if somebody can create a really interesting thought, I'm always open to that. So also, congratulations to you and to those who've worked on the book. I think it's a very valuable and insightful addition for anyone. And I think it's also a very interesting read. So I can personally only strongly recommend it.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And that's one of our goal and my passion of elevating that discussion. Let's talk about it, right? And let's try to make improvements. It's not like it was not happening, but there can be things can be improved upon. Let's bring in a new way of working, new perspectives to discuss, right? So thank you, Matt, for that. But how do you see, Matt, now at an urgency level, as we have been discussing, data is already being there and many things to be done by a CEO. CEO is already busy, the boards are already busy to doing too many things. So why must they prioritize what there should be more
So,
like a time?
I'm gonna say this a little bit tongue in cheek, but for those of you who happen to be tennis fans, you will probably, right as we're recording this, the semifinals of
Yeah,
Wimbledon taking
exactly.
place.
Yeah.
And you may have just noticed that Alcaraz is the first finalist, and right now Sinner is playing against Djokovic.
Okay.
And as this happens, I'm going to use the following analogy to bring to you, hopefully, the importance of data and AI in a tennis analogy. So today, right now, Sinner is playing against Djokovic. Now imagine for a second that data and AI is the equivalent of the racket you use. And let's just say you gave one of those two the racket they're using today, and the other one is using a wooden racket from the 70s.
Uh,
Who do you think is going to win? And let's say Sinner plays the first set with his racket and Djokovic plays it with a wooden racket, and then you switch it up, and Sinner has to play with a wooden racket, and Djokovic has to play, and is going to play. The outcome is clear. The person who actually plays with a modern day racket is going to win. No questions asked. Doesn't matter how good the. So can you still be, in my case, a good marketeer with a wooden racket? You can be a marketeer, but you're not going to be bleeding edge. You're not going to win Wimbledon with a wooden racket today. It's not possible. You can be a good athlete. You can be a good marketer. You can be a good any corporate citizen, so to speak. But I think it is the equivalency of a top-notch tennis racket for the tennis player to win. And if you want to win in the marketplace and you don't embrace the latest technology, the latest strings, the latest and the forth, I think the same is going to hold true here. You cannot hide from the wave that's coming at us. And so my advice to anyone, again, I spent some time with a client, and I can't tell you how much time we actually this week in Chicago for a couple of days, and I can't tell you how much time we spoke about actually data and metrics and and how do you actually marry data in a quick way, and are we using agentic AI, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So look, I may have been doing this for a long, long time. But I, for one, am probably more excited today about the importance of data than when I started my career. And, I think it's going to be fascinating to observe what's going to happen. So uh, I hope this was a helpful example, but I, for one, am obviously a big proponent, not only of your book, but of the entire topic itself.
Wow, what a lovely analogy, Matt. I really loved it. So I'm going to use it if you don't mind. But
Now, please do.
and
Please do.
as you're talking to that analogy, your picture came to my mind. I think I don't know where I saw it. When people are using wooden rackets, if you see the turf, the grasses would have worn close to the net. The game was played close to the net. But now, when you have the modern day rackets, the grass is worn out close to the baseline because people are able to win shots more and spending more time on the baseline. So that's another analogy. I believe the game has changed. With the modern day racket, you will not be playing close to the net. You will playing more to the baseline. So you need to, as a marketeer or any function, I believe, you need to know where the game is played and how do you win the game with that new racket and with the present day of working, right?
Absolutely. And, and what's actually interesting is that's not only I used to play or still play tennis. I played fairly competitively in my life. So that has to do actually directly with the equipment.
Yeah,
Today's rackets are better.
yeah,
The balls are different.
yeah,
And so the field has actually leveled out.
yeah,
And as the field is leveled out, you need to play from the baseline a little bit more. What this means, if you want to stick with the data analogy, every company has data.
yeah,
Every company has some data. The difference is going to be how you use it, how quickly you use it. Can you actually synthesize it? Can you also, really bring some real insights to it? So I think I am fully supportive of your not only hypothesis, but also statements in the book. And yeah, a super interesting conversation. And thank you very much for having me.
Thanks a lot, Matt, for your time. Really appreciate it. And I will let you go watch the match now, right?
That's where we go. Thank you
Yeah, that's
again.
very
I
good.
really appreciate you, Sujay.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot for jumping in. Thank you, Matt.
Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you.